is linking consumption of glutens, lectins, dairy, grains, and even things like heavy metals to heart disease. So if you have a palpitation, an arrhythmia, a tachycardia, a blood pressure, a cholesterol, triglyceride issue that you just can't seem to shake on your own, text the word HEART to 704-906-2094 and I'll send you a free masterclass workbook that will show you the steps to reverse cardiovascular disease using functional medicine. 100% free. All we need is your name, your email, and the word HEART texted to 704-906-2094. As a free gift, you get access to a masterclass that I'm hosting live on Saturday, October 12th at 10 a.m. Once again, send the word HEART with your name and email to 704-906-2094. 704-906-2094. Good afternoon. Happy Saturday. Welcome to another enlightening episode of the Ask Dr. Ernst Show. My name is Dr. Aaron Ernst, and today we're going to dive deep into truths behind heart health, ways you can protect yourself. More specifically, we're going to talk about the hidden dangers of things like gluten, lectins, and heavy metals, and how they can induce cardiovascular damage, and how a lot of people don't realize how bad gluten, lectins, and heavy metals are. These are the three major players behind chronic cardiovascular disease and is, in my opinion, the number one reason why people who have normal numbers for cardiovascular heart health, which if you've been listening to my shows for any duration of time, cholesterol does not measure heart health, but doctors think it does. So the people who have normal cholesterol and end up with a heart attack usually have the damage because of gluten, lectins, and heavy metals. So whether you are somebody who is being mindful about heart health or you're someone who has a heart health issue, this is a special episode. Guys, it's going to be short and sweet. The Tar Heels are playing a game today. So I'm just going to do straight, no interruptions, no commercials, no holding back. Let's have some fun. And you're going to see all during the episode, which is streaming only on social media channels, there are some links above and below. You can get our free ebooks for heart health. You can get our masterclass guides for free. You can join me for an event that I have technically next Saturday, right? So like the 12th of October. And it's all free. You just need to take action and use the information. So let's just jump straight into this. This is a special broadcast, uninterrupted, commercial-free. It's like you paid the upgrade for your monthly fee. No commercials. Okay, so let's go straight into the first culprit, gluten. And you've probably heard about gluten because everybody's like, oh, it means I can't eat wheat. And are you really sure gluten is bad as you say it is? Well, it's the original gluten, not a big deal. But we have unfortunately bastardized food in the United States specifically. So now wheat and barley and rye and pretty much anything that's made from these grains, breads, pastas, cakes, cookies, crackers, the majority of processed foods are all toxic today because of the change that happened to the gluten protein. Gluten is something that gives dough the sort of elasticy, sort of stretchy structure, and it makes things soft and fluffy, and this is why everybody likes bread, right? You know, like this, the contexture of it, it glues it together. Probably why they called it gluten. But over the past couple of decades, we now know that it is a significant concern, not just for people who are allergic to gluten, i.e. celiacs, but for every single individual that eats a piece of pasta, cakes, cookies, crackers, processed foods that has wheat in it. Here's where things get interesting. Gluten doesn't just stay in your digestive tract. They're now finding out that the protein, because of the hybridization and the genetic modification and the want and the desire to have shorter stalk wheat, easier to process and grind through machines, and to have it grow in the presence of the pesticides, Roundup, glyphosate, etc. We we created this mutant gluten that is now in all grains in the United States. And what happens is it physically acts like a virus. So I'm going to give you just a basic breakdown. When you consume cookies, crackers, pastas, cakes, wheat products, the gluten protein is not broken down in your stomach like it used to be. It is stomach resistant, so it gets into the small intestines. And like a virus, it physically attaches to a small intestine cell, which causes a reaction, and that cell will secrete a protein called zonulin. This is well-researched and well-known. Zonulin lands on the neighboring cell and causes that cell to spread its gap junctions apart. So it's like it opens the floodgate. So the next gluten protein can just zip right through the cell and into your bloodstream. And so how exactly does it do this? Well, some speculate it's the payback. It's nature's paradox. We screwed up naturally occurring wheat, and so nature's like, I'm going to come in and destroy you now. Other people think that gluten's always done this, but it's just doing it more. I've even heard some conjecture to say that gluten was created to be like an infected virus so that so many Americans would have digestive problems, because most of us don't equate stomach problems to health issues, yet the research says your microbiome is connected to every system in your body, including your brain. There's medical doctors, David Perlmutter, who wrote a book called Grain Brain, which shows if you eat wheat, it will destroy your brain over time. Cognitive decline, dementia, Alzheimer's, all connected directly to the consumptions of grains. So how exactly does gluten do something to your heart then? Well, the key lies in the effect of chronic inflammation. If you listened to last week's special broadcast, inflammation is the key of heart disease. So if a human being eats wheat in the United States that's grown and made and processed in the U.S. under traditional hybridized seeds, then grabbing those grains, then spraying them and drying them with Roundup, it's a desiccation process. Google this if you don't believe me. Roundup used to dry grains. They physically spray it on the grains after they've been collected because it dries them out. And it helps them to be stored easier. Gets the water out of them. So what we do is we now take those seeds, the wheat, and we grind them down, and you don't wash off the pesticide residues, and we turn into flour, and then we turn into a bread product, and you eat it. So the sensitivity comes from that, not from the gluten itself, because if you're in another country where they haven't hybridized their wheat, and they haven't sprayed it with glyphosate, and it's in its original state, you can then have that piece of cookie, pasta, cracker, pizza, whatever, and it won't affect you as much. It still affects you, but not as much. So a leaky gut is the big issue, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Your intestines are actually somewhat leaking internally, not stool into your body. That would be sepsis and you would die. But it's a leak of proteins and food particles and even bacteria into the bloodstream. And these particles that should stay inside of your gut, like, again, the toxins and the bacteria and the gluten and the lectins and undigested food particles, they leak through into your blood, and that right there is what sets off a massive inflammatory response. To your body, food particles floating around your blood, bad idea. Pieces of proteins that shouldn't be there, bad idea. Bacteria, horrific idea. Viruses and toxins, bad idea. So it's like, think of it like this. If you were in one room of your house and you lit a match in that one room and the whole house fills with smoke, eventually the inflammation, if you will, the fire reaches the whole house. So like, if I'm in my living room and I light a match, guaranteed upstairs, somebody's going to be like, did somebody just light a match? Like, is something burning? So it permeates. So the effect done in one room of the house is felt through the whole house. Here's what I'm trying to say with this. When gluten irritates your intestines, it's not just the intestines. It's the whole house. It's the whole body. So the heart takes the biggest brunt because inflammation can really irritate the heart. We talked earlier about how that leads a cascade of calcium formation within the vessels. If you're low in magnesium, low in K2, you can't stop the calcification of your arteries. So now your arteries become filled with calcium. That hardens them, it narrows them, it restricts blood flow. Then we see blood pressure start to rise. Then the body responds to this by kicking out LDL cholesterol because it is an antioxidant. Right? Like, did you know the bad cholesterol's actually got a good quality to it? And then it goes and it sticks to the calcium. So the calcified artery in the heart that was hardened because of the inflammation that is present because of the gluten consumption, that is because you didn't know, now we start to form a plaque, and then it goes down the classics of heart disease, stroke, and cardiovascular disease. But all of it was started by the inflammation of gluten. What's even more concerning is how gluten can provoke autoimmune reactions in certain people, like celiac disease and IBS and IBD. And these are the people that will say, oh, if I eat gluten, like I'm out for the count, diarrhea, joint pain, and I hate gluten. But you have to remember, every human being on the face of the earth in the United States that eats U.S.-based bread products is experiencing this even if you can't feel it. Studies have shown that people with celiac disease, by the way, have an extremely high risk of heart disease. And the kicker is you don't have to have celiac disease for gluten to wreak havoc on your intestines because most people are sensitive. You have an allergy. If I touch it, I'm going to have a massive reaction. Then you have a sensitivity. Oh, I can have it. I just pay the price, and a couple days later, joint pain, a rash on my arm, eczema, whatever. So let's talk about symptoms, because I guarantee you're going to say, oh, well, I do have that. So are you saying it's gluten? So beyond just digestive, which is things like bloating and diarrhea and stomach cramps, one of the most common symptoms that gluten is irritating your heart is palpitations and arrhythmias, usually feeling fatigued after a meal. So you eat pizza, which is basically heart disease in a slice, right? There's nightshades that are high in lectins, which you're about to talk about. The cheese is usually not of good source, so it's an inflammatory base. And you have the bread, which is the crust, which is gluten. So it's like heart disease, heart disease, heart disease on a pie. So you eat this pizza, and then all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm tired. And my heart's palpitating, or my heart rate went up. Some of you have these watches, right, where you can do a heart measurement. Where's the heart one on for me? I keep moving around. Here it is. Oh, no, not that one. ChatGPT, love that. Okay. So you can go through like on your watch and say measure my heart rate, right? So if you eat a meal and you see your heart rate shoot up, and you haven't done a workout or done anything, that's gluten because it's inflammation. So it's palpitations, rising heart rate after eating, rising blood pressure after eating. But many of you aren't looking at it, even though we wear these things. So here I am like yelling and screaming at you, and I'm at 61. So if I eat pizza and it goes to 81, that 20-point rise is the inflammation in my body. Some people will say they have things like anxiety or brain fog. And while these don't scream heart disease, they're a part of the puzzle. If you think about it, if your heart's beating 20 beats faster per minute at, certain number of minutes per day, you've got more beats than I do. If your blood pressure is 5 points higher but still normal, well, it's 5 points more pressure than it could be if you learn the irritation of gluten. I've heard stories of people who stop eating gluten and boom, their blood pressure goes to normal, their chest pains go down, they no longer have arrhythmias. The connection is real and it's evident in the research. So if you're experiencing a palpitation, an arrhythmia, a tachycardia, an elevation in blood pressure, just try it. It's not hard. Honestly, just don't eat wheat, but it's hard because it's in everything. Wheat is literally in everything. You got to become like a detective of ingredients. Turn it around. If it says enriched wheat, anything, don't eat it. This is most cereals and pastas and grains and breads. Oh my God, Dr. Ernst, what kind of sandwich do you eat? I don't eat sandwiches. I haven't had a sandwich in years. I just eat real food. Roast beef straight, not between two pieces of bread, which would destroy your gut. If you're experiencing symptoms again, it's worth it. Look, I've had people go gluten-free, go grainless, and not only just that, the sugars come down, their pain goes away, their body feels better, so you can do it. Is there a way to heal from previous damage of gluten? That's a great question, and the answer is yes. The first thought is simple. Stop exposing yourself to the toxins of gluten. Stop eating wheat. Just period. Stop eating wheat. The human body naturally can regenerate. Most intestines have a 14-day regeneration cycle. So in 2 weeks, you should be going, man, I feel better. You can also incorporate more higher quality food products. So clean meats, fresh vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, right? So you're not just avoiding gluten, but you're also trying to avoid things that create inflammation. So we're getting rid of dairy. We're getting rid of rice and oats and corn and things that don't have gluten but are still in the grain family. And the other thing is you can also think about getting tested if you want. We can do markers for zonulin. If your zonulin is high, we know you're eating gluten and we know you have a gut leak. We can look for other markers, glutamine, allotonin, HMG, CoA. There's a lot of markers that tell us about how healthy your gut is. And if you're understanding this, you just simply stick to an anti-inflammatory, whole foods-based diet. Get some chiropractic care to get your spine stimulated to enhance the neurological healing states, and then give it 2 to 3 weeks, and you'll see it start to get better. But usually you'll see it as your blood pressure going down, your pulse going down, your palpitations going down, etc., right? So gluten is a problem for your heart. It is an inflammatory source, and inflammation causes heart disease. So we could say that the more bread you eat, the more inflamed you are, the more heart disease you can get or have. So it could be that you have a toxic heart because of the bread products you eat. What about lectins? Lectins are another big deal. You know, if you think about it, lectins are natural compounds found in plants, particularly beans. So remember the whole, childhood phrase, beans, they're good for your heart, but they make you, right? So they're not good for your heart is what we actually found out. Beans are high in lectins. Lectins are plant toxins. I want you to think of them as naturally occurring pesticides, a way that plants protect themselves from being eaten by other animals or insects, or even humans, right? And in things like beans and pinto beans and soy and lentils and even tomatoes and potatoes, lectins are a legit thing. Dr. Stephen Gundry is huge into what's called a low lectin diet. And he'll tell you it's the paradox of plants. They're supposed to be healthy for you. And if you go vegan, you actually get sicker because you increase your lectin consumption, and lectins are poisons. Plants don't want to be eaten just like animals don't want to be eaten. So here's the problem. If you consume a lot of lectins, then it can damage the lining of your gut just like gluten. And remember, gluten technically is a lectin. And lectins, if you were to think of them, are like thorns. They can irritate the inside of your intestines, kind of punching holes. And these holes then allow for nutrients to get out into the bloodstream. They trigger inflammation. We get things like bacteria and food particles. So again, it's another source of leaky gut. The big issue right here is, I guarantee you're going to say something like, I thought beans were good. I thought vegetables were good. And they can be if you prepare them properly to reduce the lectin count. Unfortunately, the worst thing you can ever do is eat foods that are high in lectins raw. And here goes the stab against the raw food diet, right? Like, I thought eating raw vegetables was the best thing you could do. Well, it depends. Don't eat beans raw. Don't eat tomatoes raw. Don't eat potatoes raw, because Lectins are high. Pinto beans, kidney beans, soybeans, lentils, I'm trying to think what else. Garbanzo beans, all this stuff. So for example, if you just eat an uncooked kidney bean, you can have digestive distress. And if anybody's ever done this, you know you're like, oh, I'm never doing that again. But if you soak them overnight and you let them thoroughly be saturated with water, it'll naturally activate an enzymatic process where you break down the lectins. So a lot of people will have to soak things for long periods of time. But even then, there's still lectins in them. Just because you bring the lectin count from 1,000 down to 500, there's still lectins. Most people notice that you get a better digestive response if you have a sprouted nut or seed. This is why sprouted is such a big deal. Sprouted almonds are more expensive because you have to soak them overnight, then you have to dry them, then you have to sell them. But they're better for you. I've had patients who have seen drastic changes in blood pressure, heart rhythm, palpitations just by getting rid of beans and soy and garbanzo and lentils and replacing them with the vegetables that have zero lectins, zucchini and carrots and greens and things like that. The science is going to back this up to the nth degree. There's a lot of studies showing that lectins, when consumed in large amounts, like someone who is mostly vegan and gets their protein from nuts and seeds and beans, causes inflammation, which contributes to heart disease. So again, if you're somebody who is going, I can't figure out why I can't lower my blood pressure, maybe you're eating too many lectins through beans and nuts and seeds. So it's worth investigating a gluten-free, lectin-free diet. Lectin, L-E-C-T-I-N, lectin. You might be like, I've never even heard of a lectin. Okay, so now, what about the third one that no one is talking about? And it's the most ominous toxins connected to heart disease is heavy metals. And it's easy to remember which heavy metals are connected to heart disease because it's CLAM, the acronym CLAM. You can clam up your heart with cadmium, lead, aluminum, and mercury. Clam. You don't want to clam up your heart. Okay? We want to free your heart. Cadmium, lead, aluminum, and mercury. These are the ones that are directly connected to cardiovascular effects. You can Google this and just type in cadmium and heart disease and have fun reading those articles. Lead and heart disease. Lead disrupts the bundle of His, which is the electrical current that travels through the heart to separate the beating of the atrium versus the ventricle. Without the bundle of His, your heart would squeeze both at the same time and no blood would go anywhere. So God made this like electrical conductivity route so that when it fires, it's slow. It goes boom at the top, slow boom at the bottom. So it goes boom, 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 boom. Imagine slam, slam. So lead affects the heart and causes tachycardic events, ventricular events, and all the issues of electrical current in the heart. Here's why heavy metals are so dangerous. They build up over time. So you might have a low level of heavy metals and have no heart effects whatsoever, but when your heavy metals hit a specific threshold, and this is known, you can be tested for this, you get into the yellow and we go, uh-oh, you're having an effect. You get in the red and we're like, it's diagnostic. This is a connection to functionality. So it's a relationship between the amount of metals in your body and the oxidative state you're in. This is the other hard part. You can have a lot of heavy metals, but if you're low in oxidation, no big deal. Metals can react. They can rust, if you will. Lead is a problem. Iron is another problem. Iron can rust, and then we end up with ferritin. Just type in ferritin and heart disease. So think of the lining of your arteries as like a thin piece of saran wrap. And when it's damaged, calcium piles up first, which is technically a metal, and then cholesterol piles up, and then the plaque is formed, and then the blood flow is restricted. And if you become oxidized and your blood has metals in it or your cell tissues have metal in it, then the plaque can start to become aggravated. It doesn't just stop there, though. Heavy metals physically affect your heart, causing dysfunction like we talked about earlier. They disrupt the electrical conductivity. So what's supposed to happen is The SA node, supraarterial or atrial node, I think is what it's called. SA, supraarterial node. It's what goes boom, and it says beat. And it does it all by itself. It's totally programmed on its own. What can speed it up or slow it down is your brain. So if we need a more rapid heartbeat, it takes the brake off. Boom, 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 boom. The SA node fires. If we need a slower heart rate, the vagus nerve starts kicking in and it goes boom, boom. So when that node fires, the electricity travels through the atriums and that pushes blood out into the lungs. And then the ventricles fire and that pushes blood out into your body. So there has to be a delay. Boom, boom. Heavy metals cause it to go and do whatever it wants. It would be labeled as an arrhythmia or an irregular heartbeat. So the first way we know heavy metals are involved is if you've been diagnosed with some type of an arrhythmia or an irregular beat or a tachycardic this or a bradycardic that. Heavy metals can accumulate in your body for years without you even knowing you have them until they hit the threshold of, whoops, I have too many, and then the effect. This is why I think heavy metals are the worst toxin that no one is talking about generally in traditional medicine. Even in functional medicine, they'll say, oh yeah, just, chew on some spirulina tablets and, eat seaweed. And while those are chelators, they're so weak. Whereas there are non-prescriptive yet regulated chelators like DMSA, EDTA, DMSO. There's a lot of chelators that can be used to pull these metals out of your body. How do you find out if heavy metals are affecting you? Well, we can go based off symptoms. An arrhythmia, a palpitation, a tachycardia, a bradycardia, or an electrical conductivity issue. Or you can just get tested. The easiest test on the planet, and it's the cheapest. Take some of the hair off the back of your neck, drop it in an envelope, ship it out to a lab in Chicago called Doctor's Data. They're going to give you a report, and you can see, are you in the green? Everything's cool, but you still have some. Are you in the yellow? Alarm should be going off. They're too high. Or are you in the red, which is toxic? It's that easy. Is it green, yellow, or red? And just like a red light on a road, about to sneeze. Excuse me for that. Just like a red light on the road, if it's green, you're good. Just go. If it's yellow, you should be like, should I stop? Should I stop or not? I probably should, but could I? If it's red, it's like, no, stop. Stop everything, drop everything, get this stuff out. Can foods like cilantro and chlorella and spirulina bind heavy metals? Yes, but man, for some of you, you have so many metals, you'd have to be eating and drinking microgreen algae and seaweeds 24/7, 365 to even nudge it. Make sure if you do this, this is more for prevention. Juiced cilantro shots. It's a good chelator. Chlorella and spirulina. Microgreen algae in your supplements, your smoothies, or your water. Still a good idea. But if you have severe toxicity, usually medical grade chelation is going to be necessary. This is where you're physically taking a chelating binding agent, magnesium EDTA, DMSA, DMSO, some sort of a binding product. And if you need help with that, that's what we do. So Cornerstone Health Center and the Ask Dr. Ernst group, it's functional physicians, chiropractic, regenerative medicine. We have multiple practitioners that can help you. And you'll see all across the screens, do you need help? Schedule a consult call. It's completely free. So as I wrap up this short and sweet, show today, we're at about 30 minutes almost. I hope you've gained some insight into the hidden dangers that could be affecting your heart. And if you're somebody saying, man, I've tried everything, changed my diet, changed my workouts, my blood pressure's still a little high, I've got this arrhythmia, I have a palpitation, I implore you, get rid of the gluten. Get rid of the lectins. Changing diets doesn't usually mean getting rid of these two. It usually means I stopped eating crap and now I'm eating better junk. I'm still eating wheat. I'm still eating beans and tomatoes and, lentils because I thought that was healthy for me. You have to be careful. Lectins are a big deal, guys. Learn how to soak and sprout things. Learn how to get products from other countries There are local restaurants that serve wheat from France and wheat from Italy, and you can order ancient grains online, but you have to do all this stuff yourself. You're going to have to mill them, and you'll have to make them. And it's really not that hard. They make, tabletop grain mills. You just pour the seeds in the top, you push start, and flour comes out. It's not that hard. It's just you're probably going like, man, I didn't even know this was an option. But that's why these shows exist, so we can try to teach you what to do. Make sure you use the comments below or above. Ask your questions. One of the most frustrating things for me is I invest all this time and energy into teaching this, and I see hundreds of people watching and not a single comment. It's like, I don't understand that. Like, I will answer your questions for free, but you have to be the brave one to say, hey, what about this? I can't read your mind. I don't know exactly what you need to hear, so ask. But the good news is by making some simple lifestyle changes, get rid of the wheat, get rid of the lectins, reduce the intake of these foods, which is wheat and beans and lentils, and just Google it, foods high in lectins, get rid of those. Foods that have wheat in them, get rid of those. And it's easy, pasta, cookies, crackers, pizzas, cakes, and processed foods. Notice how they almost all start with P? So thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you have found out that there is options for your heart health, and you can be a better cardiologist than your cardiologist if you just learn how to do this. So now's when I would recommend use the links above or below. I'm going to put it in the chat just so you guys can see it. AskDrErnst.net/heart. It'll register you for the event next week. There's going to be hundreds of people online, and I'm going to show you how to take high blood pressure, get rid of it, palpitations, get rid of it, arrhythmias, get rid of it, high cholesterol, get rid of it, high triglycerides, get rid of it, and guess what it involves? Get rid of the gluten, get rid of the lectins, and get the metals out of your body. That's step number 1 of a 3-step system. I'll give you the other 2 steps on the masterclass. So thanks for joining me on this better journey to your health today. If you're concerned about any of the issues we discussed, I encourage you to reach out to us. AskDrErnst.net. Click on the free consultation on the top right-hand corner and stay tuned because the episodes we do are all geared into diving deeper into what the science and research says that you can do for natural healing. And as always, take care of your health because your heart depends on it. So this is Dr. Aaron Ernst signing off. I'll see you guys next week. And remember, you can take care of your heart naturally, but it starts today because health is from within, not from without. Be blessed. Hey, it's Dr. Ernst, host of the Ask Dr. Ernst Show. And did you know that heart disease is not caused by your genetics or your cholesterol? Recent research is linking consumption of glutens, lectins, dairy, grains, and even things like heavy metals to heart disease. So if you have a palpitation, an arrhythmia, a tachycardia, a blood pressure, a cholesterol, triglyceride issue that you just can't seem to shake on your own, text the word HEART to 704-906-2094, and I'll send you a free masterclass workbook that will show you the steps to reverse cardiovascular disease using functional medicine. 100% free. All we need is your name, your email, and the word HEART texted to 704-906-2094. And as a free gift, you get access to a masterclass that I'm hosting live on Saturday, October 12th at 10 a.m. Once again, send the word HEART with your name and email to 704-906-2094. 704-906-2094.